Thank you, Jordana. I also wanted to thank you and Mike Rothfeld for all the support and also for giving me this opportunity to work with these really wonderful students. It's been a pleasure and I've learned a lot. So I'm just going to go right into it and introduce our first presenter. Shan is a senior in visual studies, and this is her last semester. And she's planning for a future as a PhD in art history, and I'm sure she'd like your advice about that. Today she's presenting the fruit of a research project that has spanned 2 years, and her paper is entitled Deconstructing Failure, the Ceramic Works of Peter Voulkos.
Okay. Hi everyone, I want to thank each of you for being here, and also to my professors and friends for being such a big part of my creative process. I couldn't have done this without all of you. And today I will be presenting Deconstructing Failure, the Ceramic Works of Peter Voulkos. So when one thinks of the term failure, we think of it as something to be avoided, stigmatized, or even feared. But what if failure can be approached in a different, more productive way? The artist I'm discussing today is Peter Voulkos, a contemporary American ceramist from the West Coast. Today, Voulkos is seen as a heroic figure among many ceramists. However, this idea can be traced back to the efforts of art critics like Rose Stifka and John Coplands, who have associated Voulkos' work with New York-based abstract expressionist painting. Stifka's article on the left features Voulkos' work with other West Coast ceramics. By comparing their active working process to abstract expressionism, Stifka claimed that the avant-garde West Coast ceramists were able to break away from traditional Western European ceramic practices. However, it was John Coplands, another art critic, who first coined the term abstract expressionist ceramics. On the right, we have Copland's catalogue cover. However, Copland's exhibition was held more than 10 years after the height of the abstract expressionist movement. As a result, he framed the revolutionary works of the West Coast ceramists as derivatives of a painting movement that arrived 10 years too late. As we can see here, both pieces chosen by Stifka and Coplands reflect the idea of clay as a surface to be painted upon with colored glazes. During the Cold War, the CIA used abstract expressionism, the first all-American painting movement, as a means of categorizing American identity. Abstract expressionists like Jackson Pollock, whom you can see on the left, were framed as national heroes. By inserting Voulkos into the ongoing abstract expressionist narrative, Stifka and Coplands hoped to place Voulkos on the same heroic pedestal. Today, the perpetuation of this oversimplified narrative is detrimental to Voulkos' scholarship. While Voulkos once referred to himself as an abstract expressionist, I argue that his most revolutionary works are those that eventually broke away from abstract expressionism. Yes. Now that I've contextualized how Voulkos was framed as an abstract expressionist hero, I will proceed to discuss how it's more productive to see him as a revolutionary figure, one who engaged with failure and deconstruction in a way that is medium-specific to ceramics. To support my thesis, I will discuss Voulkos' work in light of works by avant-garde composer John Cage on the left, dancer Merce Cunningham in the middle, and Japanese author Shoji Hamada on the right. A deconstructive, medium-specific approach can be seen from Voulkos' Galler's Rock on the left, as well as Cage's music composition A Flower on the right. In many ways, Galler's Rock is the opposite of Greek pottery. Instead of being smooth and perfect, it's rough and craggy. Instead of being symmetrical, it's asymmetrical. The term deconstruction comes from literary theorist Jacques Derrida. It's a way of challenging binary forms of thinking, as well as the values we attach to certain binary oppositions. For example, traditional Western European ceramics tends to favor symmetry over asymmetry, perfection over imperfection, and harmony over disharmony. By intentionally failing to achieve traditional Western European ideals of beauty, Voulkos was able to break away from traditional ways of making and thinking about ceramics. According to Derrida, deconstruction also involved using the basic building blocks of French vocabulary as a way to critique itself. In a similar way, Galler's Rock is made from wheel-thrown cylinders, one of the basic building blocks of the ceramic medium. We can see this in images 1 and 2. In image 3, we can see Voulkos fitting together the cylinders in order to create an internal armature for his sculpture. Voulkos also used clay slabs, another basic element from the clay medium. In image number 5, we can see Voulkos using clay slabs to build an external skin over his sculptures. In Gallus rock, hiding the smooth wheel-thrown cylinders under its rough outer skin can be seen as an act of deconstruction. However, a cross-section reveals that both elements are actually working together as part of a larger system. By demonstrating that opposing binaries cannot exist without each other, Voulkos challenges us to reconsider the hierarchical nature of our preferences and thus deconstructs our perceived associations with failure. In Cages of Flower, the piano is not played in a conventional way. Instead, the singer taps on it, treating it as a giant percussion instrument. Also, the singer's voice and the tapping of the piano do not harmonize with each other. In addition, the singer sings only in vowels, which are, of course, the basic building blocks of language. So on the left, we have a quote by John Cage: "This harmony may be a harmony to which many are unaccustomed." And on the right, we have a quote by Peter Voulkos: "Play is like music. You have to know the structure of music before you can come up with anything," which of course is a very post-structuralist approach towards music and play respectively. Through reconfiguring the basic building blocks of play and music, Cage and Voulkos were able to achieve a radically different type of harmony. By engaging in binary oppositions associated with failure, you're able to push the vocabulary of both play and music. This in turn encourages the viewer or the audience to see beyond traditional ways of appreciating both mediums. In 1953, Voulkos was exposed to dancer Merce Cunningham's dance performances, and in the late 1970s, he began introducing performance to clay. Up to then, clay had been a largely studio practice. During the 1980s, ceramics was seen as an object that fulfilled a specific function. Through his performances, Voulkos attempted to break clay away from function, and meanwhile, dance had a long narrative tradition, such as the ballet Swan Lake. Through his performances, Cunningham was able to break clay from the need to tell a story. So why is function or narrative a problem in the first place? In the Enlightenment period, German philosopher Immanuel Kant was known for categorizing different ways of appreciating art. For Kant, pure beauty is linked to feeling and free from desire. On the other hand, disinterested beauty is linked to desire and thought versus feeling. For example, the ceramic cookie jar on the right cannot be considered purely beautiful because its value is judged in terms of whether it can keep your cookies airtight. So yes, apparently can't allow this. So it's like something that all art students think about very constantly. So, meanwhile, art critic Clement Greenberg discussed how every medium should ideally be a pure manifestation of its qualities. In the case of clay, which has a long history of being linked to function, the idea of material purity becomes a huge problem. By failing to make functional vessels or choreographing dances that intentionally fail to tell a story, Voulkos and Cunningham challenged our perceptions of play and dance as supplementary mediums. Instead, Cunningham and Voulkos invited their audience to focus on the embodied process behind both play and dance. In Voulkos' case, his clay vessels become a record of his performance and are thus liberated from function. Other than avant-garde music and dance, Voulkos was also exposed to Eastern philosophy, specifically Zen Buddhism. On the far right, we can see the Japanese potter Shoji Hamada wearing the glasses. And next to him, we can see Peter Voulkos in his youth, who had been his temporary assistant for a very short time. While both Slivka and Copland's acknowledged the influence of Zen, Slivka referred to them as being crude and Copland's referred to them as being dumpy. So these unflattering descriptions can be seen as a way of rejecting Eastern influence in favor of upholding a unique all-American identity. It also mirrors America's struggle for cultural supremacy during the Cold War, as well as its strained relations with Eastern countries like Japan and Vietnam. As it turns out, Voulkos made Japanese tea bowls consistently throughout his career. The one on the left is by Hamada, and the two on the right are by Peter Voulkos. Late in his career, Voulkos would directly compare his stacked forms to the Japanese tea bowl. Made of 3 layers of stone wet clay, Ice Bucket was originally wheel-thrown but taken off the wheel and made asymmetrical in shape. In many places, its bulky clay body had become like rock under the pressures of gravity. The asymmetry and imperfection of Ice Bucket make the piece the antithesis of the Greek vase that is valued for symmetry and perfection. Here we have Voulkos' Ice Bucket and the Kintsugi tea bowl that was restored by Honami Koetsu, who used lacquer and gold to fill in the gaps where the pottery had been previously broken. While both pieces deal with elements of destruction and imperfection, a kintsugi master's goal lies in restoring function. On the other hand, Voulkos' work did not. With the kintsugi technique, destruction and imperfection are tempered with elegance and function. Meanwhile, Voulkos stuck to using wet clay, making non-functional works that push the physical limits of the clay material. It's crucial to add that neither technique is superior or inferior to each other, rather they are based on very different goals and values. Despite being a skilled wheel thrower, Voulkos humorously commented that his ice buckets were all cracked. Because they leak out water from inside them, only ice is left behind. By viewing cracks and warping in a positive versus negative manner, Voulkos came to view them as an alternate visual possibility of the ceramic medium. In addition, ice buckets are nagama wood-fired, a technique associated with Zen ceramics. This technique is a key factor that led Voulkos away from abstract expressionism. While these two pieces can be described as spontaneous looking, ice bucket is wood-fired and does not use glazes. Instead, its colors are produced by wood ash, randomly landing onto it and fusing onto its clay body, creating a natural glaze. With wood firing on the right, we do not see the hand of the ceramist at work. With abstract expressionism on the left, the painter tends to exert his or her will onto a blank canvas. Pollock was able to pick the colors he wanted for his painting, but Voulkos' wood firing tends to be a lot more unpredictable. By welcoming the element of chance into his work, Voulkos was able to open his mind to unforeseen possibilities and thus transcend his own ego as a maker. Also, wood firing is collaborative, unlike abstract expressionist painting, which is seen as a very individualized process. This challenges the notion of the highly skilled genius artist who is solely responsible for his or her work. As unpredictable as wood firing can be, an experienced kiln manager is able to exert some amount of control over the process. This careful balance of chance and control draws parallels with Cage's 4 minutes and 33 seconds. In Cage's piece, recording instruments are positioned inside a music hall. However, it's the audience and not the pianist who ultimately creates the music in the piece. Lastly, we have Aligria. Like ice bucket, Aligria is made of stone wet clay and it is anagama wood fired. Paradoxically, it's shaped like a bottle, but it's too big to be carried around. Also, it's made from chunks of clay that are fitted together in an asymmetrical formation. Due to the gaps on its clay body, it cannot actually hold water. Aligria's paradoxical quality resonates with the Zen koan, a riddle used by Zen monks to uproot their ordinary way of thinking and looking at the world. Despite its reference to a clay vessel, Aligria is non-functional, nor is it a sculpture. So what is it exactly? The answer to this lies in the pluralistic Zen attitude towards art, which sees all forms of art as being equal to one another. So there's no power struggle, there's no hierarchy involved in this. Although Voulkos acknowledged that his ceramic vessel forms had sculptural qualities, he drew a very clear distinction between vessels and sculptures. Nonetheless, he challenged the hierarchical nature of traditional Western European art by insisting that both ways of making stood on equal terms. By paradoxically failing to fulfill a function, Aligria invites viewers to see the ceramic vessel form as being worthy of aesthetic contemplation. I'd like to end with a slide of one of Voulkos' clay demonstrations. Here we can see one of his wheel-thrown forms collapsing on him. Instead of feeling ashamed at making a mistake in front of everyone, here is what he said in response. If you're working for an audience they like to see you move up, it makes them feel good, and you accept failure because it's a positive failure. So, by productively engaging with failure, Voulkos teaches us that failure may not truly exist in the world. Rather, it can stem from the restrictive expectations that we impose on ourselves as well as the people around us. Instead of regarding failure with fear, it can be a great way to uproot old ways of making and thinking about art. Through his ceramic work, Voulkos encourages us to see that what we consider to be signs of failure are actually reflections of clay's natural qualities. Rather than aiming to achieve the heroic quality of bronze sculpture, Voulkos invites his viewers to appreciate clay for its humble qualities and thus opened up new pathways for other ceramists to follow. Okay, that's the last slide. Thank you everyone. for your kind attention. I hope that for each of you, my presentation has shifted your views on failure even just a little. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.